உள்ளம் எனும் உள்ள பொருள் உள்ளல் எவன் உள்ளத்தே உள்ளபடி உள்ளதே உள்ளல் உணர்வாயே. Namo Ramana. With Bhagavan's immense grace, we are commencing the meditations on verse number 5 in Ulladu Narpadu. We had seen that the first 4 verses contain one complete set of teachings in one sense, because the first verse talked about the self directly, the second verse on the first cause or Ishvara, the third verse on the world, and the fourth verse on the ego, Uruvam Tanayin Ulagapara Matram. We are commencing our meditation on the 5th verse. We will find that from here, from 5, 6, 7, Bhagavan talks about the world. Then 8 to 22 about the first cause or Ishvara, and 23, 24, 25, 26 is about the ego, is about I. The sadhana verses start from 27 onwards. So these 3, the next 3 verses that we are going to take up are the only verses we will find about Ulagu, about the world. So a lot of thoughts, a lot of energy that we would have otherwise spent in investigation into the Ulagu is clearly turned around by Bhagavan for us in these 3 verses. So while going through these 3 verses, we can try to assimilate how much of the outgoing of our attention Bhagavan is turning inward, and his key upadesham of turn inward, how it is carried out by these 3 verses. We can meditate on that, so that by the time we cover the 8th verse, 5th, 6th, 7th verse, we should be able to clearly understand that the attention is to be turned inward from the sensory world on to the consciousness that is unchanging source of the rising mind. That will be in the 7th verse. But let us focus on the 5th verse today. But these 3 verses, 5, 6, 7, that is all we are going to have to meditate on Ulagum. Out of the 3 principles, Ulagu, in which the sadhana of the jiva seems to be involved a lot. How Bhagavan turns that around to the self is what we are going to see in these 3 verses. Let us absorb the contents thoroughly, slowly, clearly. The 5th verse begins like this: Udal pancha kosha uruvadanal. Udal pancha kosha uru adanal aindum. Udalennum sollil odungum. Udal andri undo ulaham. Udal vittulahathai கண்டாருளரோ அழறுவா. உடல் பஞ்ச கோஷ உரு அதனால் 5 உடலென்னும் சொல்லில் ஒடுங்கும். உடல் அன்றி உண்டோ உலகம் உடல் விட்டுலகத்தை கண்டாருளரோ கழறுவார். உடல் பஞ்ச கோஷ உருவதனால். This is from the Upanishads. In one verse, Bhagavan is going to give us some main contents of Taittiriya Upanishad, and also in some sense the main contents of Aittiriya Upanishad. So the references I have made for this particular verse, which you can go through also, is the contents of Taittiriya Upanishad regarding the Panchakoshas. And there is also a talk given by Sri Sarvapriyanandaji, Swamiji Sarvapriyanandaji, on the Panchakoshas. In the YouTube it's available, Panchakoshas from Taittiriya. It is a very comprehensive and well connected talk. We don't need the whole talk for this verse, but the basic concepts of Panchakosha one can be very clear about if we go through those two materials. There is a download from Swami Krishnananda ji of Shivananda Ashram, whose talks on Aittiriya and Taittiriya Upanishads have been summarized into one book. That's available as a download. You can see that. And there is this talk about 58 minutes by Swami Sarvapriyananda ji, which will give us a clarity as to the koshas. But Bhagavan's verse goes beyond the suggestions of those verses in the Upanishad and the talk. But let's go through the first sentence first. Udal pancha kosha uruvadanal. One of the ways in which one can look at the body is to see the body to be made of pancha koshas, the 5 koshas, which by now almost all of us will be familiar with in Bhagavan's teachings, though it is mentioned only once or twice in his original teachings. In fact, Pandit Lakshman Sharma ji and David Godman make it a point to say that Bhagavan doesn't give much importance to the gradations and the divisions in the koshas. This verse and the beginning of Who Am I are the two places where we will find these koshas being used by Bhagavan. But this is something that's present in the Upanishads, and we can go through it clearly with the understanding that these 5, 6, 7, these verses are aimed at turning our attention from the world to ourselves, and especially to that inner portion of ourselves, which is the unchanging consciousness. Udal pancha kosha uru. This body can be considered as made up of pancha koshas, the 5 koshas. Adanal aindum udal ennum sollil udungum. Bhagavan is starting the verse by a definition, by what he means by udal. It is not yet an enunciation of the teaching. Usually we will find when a law is set up on a particular subject, after the preamble, we will find the concepts being defined. What do particular concepts in the body of the law exactly mean? There will be some delineation of those meanings. This particular sentence is something like that. It is leading us on to the pointer, but not yet the pointer. What is the definition Bhagavan is giving? He is saying, Udal pancha kosha uruvadanal. The pancha koshas are, of course, annamaya, pranamaya, manomaya, vijnanamaya, and anandamaya. Maya, of course, is full of or permeated by. So each of those prefixes, we can easily understand what they mean. Annamaya, full of food. Pranamaya, permeated by prana. Manomaya, Vijnanamaya, permeated by the nature of mind, the nature of intellect. Anandamaya or Ajnanamaya, filled up with nescience. These are the koshas. These are the koshas that are present. In one of the winter days in Bhagwan, I can't resist myself. I should have gone through the meaning of the whole verse, but this is a particular incident which is a little bit humorous, where I think it is Ramasamy Iyer, seeing the chill in the early morning hours of Tiruvannamalai, must be December or November, and he brings a shirt for Bhagwan or a coat and says that Bhagwan should put that on to prevent the cold. And Bhagwan says, already the Atma has covered itself with 5 coats. You want me to wear 2 more or 1 more? Take it away, he says. Now, Udal Pancha, Kosha, all these sheets, all these coats are Udal. Udal Pancha, Kosha, Uru Adanal. Therefore, Aindum, all the 5 put together, Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manomaya, Vijnanamaya and Anandamaya, all the 5 put together can be called as Udal. Udal ennum sollil Odungum. All these 5 koshas are contained in the one word Udal. We should also understand that there is another division of the world, the body, as a gross, subtle and causal. If we see gross and causal, Lakshman Sharma ji says, then the other 3 can be combined into subtle. The gross is Annamaya, the causal is Anandamaya. So the Manomaya, Pranamaya, Manomaya, Vijnanamaya clubbed together form the subtle body. Gross, subtle and causal. This is the another division of the body, either as Panchakoshas or as the 3 bodies of gross, subtle and causal. Udal Panchakosha Uru Adanal Aindum Udalennum Sollil Odungum. 3 Udalum Udalennum Sollil Odungum. 5 Koshangalum Udalennum Sollil Odungum. 3 Udalgalum Udalennum Sollil Odungum. So that is a definition running up to what Bhagwan actually wants to say in the content or the body of the verse, which comes in the next 2 sentences. Udal Pancha Kosha Uru Adanal Aindum Udal Ennum Sollil Odungum Udal Andri Undo Ulaham. Udal Andri Undo Ulaham. Can a world exist apart from a perceiving body? Apart from a body. Udal Andri Undo Ulaham. Can there be a world apart from a perceiving body or a body? Udal Vitte Ulahatte Kandar Ularo. Udal Vitte Ulahatte Kandar Ularo Kadaruvai. Has there been somebody or is there anyone who has detached the awareness or consciousness from the Panchakoshas or from the body and yet seen a world? Udal Vitte Ulahatte Kandar. So these are the sadhana points. The first is the first 2 sentences form the definition. What the definition leads to is the sadhana point. What Bhagavan says there, Udalandri Undo Ulaham. So the defining point that the Jnani is making is, can there be a world apart from these units, this body, this one body, perceiving body? Without that perceiving body, is there a world? The test he gives is Udal Vitte. When you have left, when you have dropped the gross body and the subtle body in deep sleep, have you perceived the gross world or the subtle world of dreams? Udal vittu ulagathai kandar ularo kalaruvai. So he is driving home his point that one need not inquire into this multiplicity of world, this great division into which we have gone again and again seeking for happiness, seeking for answers, seeking for goals. Bhagavan is turning us around from there. He's saying, you need not inquire into this whole world. Just inquire into Udal. Just inquire into the concept body. If you inquire thoroughly into the concept body, then whatever searches you have done about money, wealth, fame, the heaven, hell, world of truth, all those things can be inquired by just inquiring into this body. What is this Panchakosha made of? What is this? Who am I? Am I this Panchakosha? Am I this three bodies? If you inquire that, then all the inquiries you could have spent on the dharmas, the various rules by which the lokas are governed. What about black holes, white dwarfs? All these things are contained in the inquiry into this. So he's turning the attention and focusing it from an inquiry into this wide world just onto this particular unit. And that's a major turning inward, and that's what helps us. These three verses, it conserves our tapasvic energy from being dissipated into multiplicity of objects and just focuses it, gathers strength by saying, this is enough. If you inquire into this, that is understood. Let us summarize the 4 lines that we find in this verse. Udal pancha kosha uruvadanal aindum udalennum sollil udungum. The body is made up of 5 sheets of Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manomaya, Vijnanamaya, Dhanandamaya. Hence, all these 5 are contained in the one word Udal. So whenever Bhagavan refers to Udal or body, I am the body. When he says we are attached to I am the body, then we should understand he includes all the Panchakoshas or the 3 bodies. Udal Panchakosha Uruvadanal Aindum Udalennum Sollil Udungum. When we say Udal, all the Panchakoshas are included. Since the body is made up of 5 sheets, all the 5 sheets are included in the term body. That's a definition. Udalandri undo ulaham. Can there exist a world into which we have spent so much of our energy in inquiry and search? Can that world exist apart from a body? And are there beings who have seen a world having renounced their body, having detached themselves from their body? Do they still perceive that world? Or do we perceive that world, that which we saw in the waking and in the dream? Do we see it in the deep sleep, where we have disassociated from the gross and the subtle, but are still caught up in the causal body? Are those worlds visible in our deep sleep? Obviously not. Therefore, what Bhagavan is saying, therefore, understand that inquiry into this whole world of people, this whole world of relationships, this whole world of whatever interactions we may have is completed if we completely inquire into what is this? Who am I? Am I these Panchakoshas? If we make that inquiry, then the inquiry into this whole world is understood. Now, I had passed a comment that Aitriya and Taitriya are included, and Swamiji Krishnanand from the Shivananda Ashram, many of his books are available as free download. They have been made available by the ashram itself. Connected to these teachings, connected to Vedanta, we will find them very useful. And connected to this verse, there is a 105-page download on Aitreya and Taittiriya Upanishad. What all Bhagavan has saved us from is made clear by the discussion by the Swamiji on Aitreya Upanishad, which comes from outer to inner. Aitreya Upanishad is from outer to inner, and Taittiriya is from the inner self experiencing and then understanding the outer and remaining in the self. So, though Taittiriya also has a cosmological argument, it is very brief because it is concerned with Udal. Whereas Aitreya, if you see, the whole discussion is about how the Brahman became this world that we see. And then the Atman Vicharam is introduced there. But firstly, it is about the whole of Brahman becoming manifest as the many, how the Brahman, it became manifest as Adi Daivas, then that manifested as many other things, then the Adi Manushya is there, and how the feeling of separation from others is there. All these are concepts that which can all be contested by other points of view, other fields of discussion. And one brief look at that area of coming from outside creation to yourself, we find that the cosmological argument in any of the scriptures is contested by science from time to time. And we cannot fight with that. We cannot fight with that. But one interesting way to look at this is that suppose the Bible or some other book, some other scriptural work had talked about quantum physics, and quantum physics is not final. Suppose they had talked about that as the mode of creation, then nobody would have looked at that at that time. So that is what we have to understand, that the scriptures, when they talk about cosmological arguments, they will be talking in terms of the understanding of those times. And by those very, very discussions, those portions become subject to changes in our understanding of cosmology. And there is nothing special about this, because we will find that Galileo is displaced by Newton, Newton's thoughts are displaced by Einstein, Einstein's thoughts are questioned and displaced by the quantum physicists. Quantum physicists still rearrange their string theories in many ways. So if you go and take one of the works of the science 400 years back as a scripture, then we laugh how they could take it like that. Those changes are there. So that danger of throwing the baby with the bathwater is there if we get lost in the cosmological argument. And that is where this teaching that apart from a body, can there be an experience of the world, that saves us immensely from deviating. To tell another instance, while reading the Who Am I scripture along with one of my students in maybe 10-12 years back, we were reading it together and we had come upon the fourth or fifth question, where Bhagavan talks about the mind and how like a spider that spins its web in the morning from out of it, and in the evening it takes back and consumes the web. The mind also projects this whole world and absorbs or goes into Laya, consuming the whole world into it. That is one of the arguments put forth, one of the rare arguments about the cosmology, but still with an example. And that example was found fault by, in our discussion, by my students. We see that spiders don't do that. They don't consume their web back. So I am not in agreement with this discussion. So we miss the point. And all those dangers can be avoided if we clearly understand the import of this verse, that Uruvadanal Aindum Udalennum Sollil Udungu. We will see why Bhagavan has brought in this definition to begin with, whereas the action point is on the second part, that Can there be a world apart from a perceiving body? Is there anyone who has perceived a world having renounced or having detached himself from the body concerned? That is how the verse. So the implication being, do not spend energy, time and tapas on inquiring into the various natures and objects in the world and various fields of study. If you understand who am I in relation to these panchakoshas, that is enough. Let us do that a little bit. How that comes and unifies Taittiriya with Aittiriya. Aittiriya becomes conceptual. It becomes a theory which can be contested. Because the modern science, you will find, will bring up many things where they talk about manifestation. But all that is not there in this verse. And we will find that the next verse takes it even deeper. But to stay with this verse and take the relevant portions from Taittiriya Upanishad, is that the Bhagavan talks about Guha. That is, he talks about Hridaya Kuhara Madhye Kevalam Brahma Matram Aham iti Sakshat Atma Rupena Bhati. So in Bhagavan, we will find the term Guha or cave, cave of the heart, as the source in which the Brahman is present, the thought-free consciousness is present as I, and hence everything else is present as Vasana. The whole creation is present as Vasana. Now, that is the direct application of the concept of cave. But we will find that Taittiriya, as discussed by the subsequent commentators on Vedanta, especially as in the Panchadasi, we will find that by cave, where is the Brahman? Brahman is Nihitam Guhaya. He is existing in the cave. What is this cave? To Shankara, it appears the cave is the Buddhi. And in Panchadasi, we find that the cave refers to these Panchakoshas. That Brahman is present within these Panchakoshas, the Annamaya obviously being the outermost, and the inner koshas. Professor T.M.P. Mahadevan, who is one of Bhagavan's early students, who was head of the Department of Philosophy in Chennai at that time, he writes that each of the inner koshas permeate the outer. That means he says that the Annamaya is permeated by Pranamaya. Pranamaya is permeated by Manomaya. Manomaya is permeated by Vijnanamaya. Therefore, we should understand that Annamaya is permeated by Vijnanamaya. Most of the sadhanas in meditation, which deal with witnessing and letting go of good and bad, which are actually in Vijnanamaya, allows you to free yourself of Annamaya and the sensory world, because the Annamaya is permeated by Vijnanamaya. But is it completely permeated by Vijnanamaya? Will it give me mukti if I just eliminate the Vijnanamaya? No. Because Vijnanamaya itself is permeated by. Therefore, we find that each of these koshas have an interlocking nature and have a mixture. And if we are to take T.M.P. Mahadevan sir's comments on it, then each of the outer koshas is permeated by the inner. That is why we will find many of the teachers, they will teach how the control of the yama of breath can give you many things in the control of the body or in the sensory world. But it will remain incomplete because it is permeated by some other kosha. The pranamaya is permeated by manomaya, and manomaya is permeated by vijnanamaya, and vijnanamaya is permeated by the ignorance, the ajnanamaya or anandamaya. Therefore, none of these koshas, if you analyze one by one, will help cross the whole area. So we'll have to look at this whole area as one. That is why Bhagavan uses the word udal. Aindum udal ennum solli odungum. One more danger in dividing and taking the divisions to be very clear, and why David Godman and Lakshman Sharma ji, why they make it a point to say that Bhagavan doesn't use much of his Panchakoshas. And there is a talk with Yogi Ramaya, in talks with Sri Ramana Maharshi, where Yogi Ramaya explicitly asks Bhagavan, do I have to cross one kosha after another? And Bhagavan clearly says, no. All you have to do is hold the eye. So, this division of Panchakoshas, we have to take it with care, not to be carried away that understanding those divisions separately is going to be of great help to us. And we should, in fact, do the opposite, not divide them and understand them separately. The practical disadvantage in taking them separately, which I have personally experienced in the practice of sadhana, is that there are systems which go kosha by kosha. There are some meditations which will allow you to cross Annamaya and say that now this particular observation is regarding Annamaya. This particular observation is regarding Pranamaya. But the risk there is that, let us say that in Annamaya, some of the food practices that we have, we get a fair degree of control by observation, let us say. Some of the food related vasanas which we had, we are able to observe and we are able to let go, and we are able to adopt a degree of freedom, a degree of detachment in the Annamaya kosha. Let's say that has happened. Now, the danger there is that now that becomes an accretion to the ego. Now, it will compare itself with the other units and say that I am now, see how that person is gobbling up, see how uncontrolled that person is, see how better controlled I am. Therefore, that is why the danger is alerted to us that don't go kosha by kosha. Take it as udal. But for understanding, for a particular point, these koshas have to be understood, because it is our experience that the waking, dream and deep sleep are there. And one way of looking at dream is that the body is lying in the bed. This is narrated by Lakshman Sharma ji once again. The body is lying in the bed, but I am in a world. I am in a world where there is thirst, there is hunger, there is appeasement, there is taste, there is emotion, there is happiness, there is sorrow. In dream, all these are there. They are all real, but the body is still in the bed. And that is why Lakshman Sharma ji says, that is why Bhagavan has said that this Pancha Kosha, all the 5 koshas are to be called as body, and the 5 koshas can be aggregated as gross body, subtle body and causal body. The gross being the Annamaya, the causal being the Anandamaya, the 2 ends of it, and the subtle body being an aggregation of Prana, Manas and Vijnana. All those 3 put together. So Lakshman Sharma ji says, in dream, you should not consider the physical body, you should consider the dream body. In dream, you will have the subtle body, without which the dream will not be there. So in dream also, there has to be a subtle body with which we participate in the dream. So that particular statement, that Udalandri Undo Ulaham, is clarified, and why these Panchakoshas are introduced by Bhagavan when this danger is there, and when he himself has deliberately told to Yogi Ramaya that one is not to inquire kosha by kosha, but is to inquire into the source of the I. Why introduce this? To make it clear that each realm, each world, it occurs only to an inhabitant of the nature of the world, or the nature of the world will be of the nature of the inhabitant. So therefore, the embodied being is a must for a world of embodiment to be present. It is enough, the purport of this verse is, it is enough to inquire into the nature of embodiment. So let us go into that as Taittiriya Upanishad does. Though in Bhagavan, the Hridaya Kuhara, the cave of the heart, is directly the source of the I thought. So he takes us directly to the root cave. That is why it is called as Hridaya Granthi. The I am the body thought, body including all the 5 koshas, the 3 bodies, that I am the body thought arises from the Hridaya Kuhara. So in Bhagavan we will find cave means Hridayam, and it is the source of the place where the I thought arises. But let's jump to Vedanta to see where the Vedanta Kesari, the lion of Vedanta, is hidden inside the 5 koshas, it is said. And that Kesari is you. So there is no fear in going and finding that Kesari, because the one who is searching and going inside the cave is verily that lion itself. It is not, one is not apart from that. But how are the koshas inquired into? The koshas, and how does it make one do all the work of having inquired into all the worlds? Which if you typically look at a day of, let's say Nandakumar in 1994, in 2004, in 2006, before Atmavachara took hold, the 95% of the time would be spent in looking for solutions in the world. More than that, not less. All that attention is turned inward. Looking into this, looking into that, all that happen automatically. They do happen, but they do happen in a sannidhi of attention, in a sannidhi of inward attention, and not with an attachment to those things. But let's go into the inquiry of the cave. Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya. Let us sit and practice till 8 o'clock. Namo Ramana.
Ramananjali, Ramananjali, Ramananjali.